little bit of a morning thought. And at first, I didn't really know what the morning thought was going to be this morning, especially after yesterday's morning thought, which I guess it made a disturbance in the force. So I don't know if this was going to be heavier or lighter. I had really all day to consider this, but there's a couple of things, and they're actually related. I was reading the Medium, the white feminist blog of everything white feminist and LGBTQI, RSTV, But there was a post on it by a white woman talking about the ones that you didn't kill. They talk about male violence toward females. And the white women, the white feminists said they were raising a powerful group of girls to come either defend themselves against men or rival men in force, right? They're teaching them how to do karate, pick up a pistol, what have you, right? Which is something women have been doing forever. It's not the first time women have had to react against the environment. There have been warrior princesses before, okay? But to rival men and to actually try to obtain rivalry with men, especially in a civilized environment. Fighting men is not something that women should do in a civilized environment, which is why you go civilized in the first place, so that the women don't have to defend themselves against men or actually fight men. And for the most part, in fact, a reply to the post is that the men that they're talking about, the violent men that they're talking about, kill 10 to 20, well, actually 20 times more men than they do women. And they really don't want that kind of smoke. They don't want to enter into the world of men. And when you hear them talking about how brave they are and how brave it is to embrace their power, as they call it, their power, and show men what they got, and show men they can be strong and they don't have to take it and they don't have to cower and all that kind of stuff, right? And by the way they talk, they have absolutely no idea what the fuck they're talking about. They have no idea what it is to walk in the world of men, to walk in the shoes of even a little boy. The caution that you have to learn. Even the roughest, toughest badass on the street know when to get into a fight and when not to get into a fight. I don't care how tough you are, how big you are, how violent you are. You avoid fights way more than you get into one. All little boys are taught how to avoid fights. Nobody fights every day. Nobody fights every time they go outside. Nobody fights every time they interact. You're taught cooperation and violence avoidance because it's necessary to, number one, your survival, and number two, you're thriving in this environment. You can't walk out there alone. You're going to have to get along with somebody. You're going to have to get along with most people. Because if you fight every day, that ups your odds of actually being hurt or killed. And there's very few fights you walk away from being unscathed. As a weapons expert told me in a seminar one time, whether you like it or not, whether you think so or not, and sometimes we, in a civilized environment, we kind of suspend that kind of thought process. He said, if you think about it, every fight you get into is or could be a fight to the death. You just don't know about it because you could think you're into a small scuffle. That small scuffle could be your death. Hit your head wrong. He hits his head wrong. The guy could have a knife, a gun, whatever. That could be your day to die just by getting into a scuffle. So every man knows that, and he lowers his odds by avoiding more fights than he gets into. And women, especially white women, take that for granted because they don't have to live that way. They think that they live in fear, that they think that they're being preyed upon, when actually they're the most protected group of human beings that's ever lived on the face of the earth. You see pictures of women in New York City, some of the most roughest neighborhoods in the world, and they walk the streets at night. Supposedly one of the most roughest places in the world. Walk the streets at night. You see women in Chicago and Dallas, man, at 3 o'clock in the morning, they're walking the streets by themselves, which doesn't happen anyplace else in the world. I should say in most of the world. The Western world is the only place that it actually happens, where women can actually do that out in the open. That's because the Western world is some of the most protected spaces in the world. And the prosperity keeps the wolves at bay. And women don't realize that. And women they desperately want to be that Disney princess that comes in at 120 pounds and throws over 200 and 300-pound dudes and vanquishes them. I said, there are no Mary Sues in real life, okay? So I was trying to tell them. Fast forward to what just happened a couple of days ago in Crown Heights in Brooklyn, right? A little girl on camera got stomped out by 15 dudes. And they got her cell phone and a debit card and her Jordans. I don't know why people still steal Jordans, but I guess old habits never died. They were doing that in the 80s. Didn't understand it then, don't understand it now. But the shocking thing is, wasn't that some kid got jumped by 15 people, 15 guys, and got their stuff taken. That's been happening for 40 years or longer. And got their Jordans taken. That's been happening for 35 years, as soon as Jordans came out. The difference is it was the girl this time. Or sort of dog bites man, right? Or man bites dog. In other words, something you don't see every day. Now, you see girls get jumped, on World Star Hip Hop all the time. Girls get into an arena, they feeling themselves or they feel disrespect and they jump each other. But the rarity is that these are boys. These 15-year-old boys jumping on a 15-year-old girl. 15 of them. Now, the attack lasted less than 20 seconds. It's enough to send her to the hospital, but it lasted less than 20 seconds. They didn't beat her to death. It was meant to send a message. So I'm looking at this tape and these guys jumping all over her. Like 15 people just don't randomly coalesce on some unknown person and jump them over a pair of sneakers, especially in front of a camera. That doesn't happen. So I did a little digging and found out this little girl got into a fight with another little girl who instantly sicked her friends on this girl. Now, I'm sure there's other things that go on because one little fight doesn't lead to anything like this. This was actually done on purpose. Now, this kind of stuff happens all the time to guys, and most times with a lot deadlier outcomes than just some bumps and bruises and maybe a concussion. But the thing is, the difference is that this was a woman. This is actually a woman entering into the world of men, and everybody's stunned. They're stunned not because it happens in the world of men. It's stunned because a woman entered into the world of men and she got treated like a man. She got treated like a boy. She got treated like every little boy gets potentially treated like from the time he's 5 years old, he walks to school by himself. This can potentially happen to every little boy, especially every little black boy, especially if you live in a major city. Now, it can happen anywhere. It can happen in a country town, and it does happen in country towns. It happens when boys go to other boys' houses looking for them. It's very common. Well, we don't expect it to happen to a girl. Then everybody you interviewed said, oh, this is just a travesty. This is just what's the world coming to? The world's coming to an end. Cue the apocalypse. And I knew one day there was going to be a generation of boys that were going to take up women on their shit. A generation of boys that weren't going to hold to the old chivalrous narrative that you can't hit a girl, that women are special, that little girls are supposed to be protected. And that generation is here. Generation Z's don't give a fuck because they've been taught and reinforced that girls are equal to men, that girls are equal to boys. There's no difference. That's what you have been pushing in their heads. And girls are just as strong as boys. That's what you have been pushing in their heads. And you go back and tell those little boys that they can't hit little girls or beat up little girls or treat little girls like boys. Little boys said, well, girls are supposed to be equal. In fact, they tell us that girls are better than boys. Now, under that Star Wars Mary Sue, she's supposed to be able to beat up all 15 of those guys and walk away victorious because she's better than they are. She's supposed to be that new generation of kick-ass girls, like that lady said, the warrior princess that's coming to get rid of the patriarchy, to fight the inequality of men and women, to avenge all the wrongs that men have piled upon women by keeping them in subservience until today, when those 15 boys jumped on that little girl and everybody's shocked. Everybody wants to pump the brakes. Everybody now wants to go down and crack down on these 15-year-olds and these young children under 18, these minors. I'm just grateful that the little girl wasn't seriously hurt. And I'm grateful that people will step in. And I'm grateful that since it's on camera, they're going to identify all the young men that participated in it because it was wrong. Now, I should have gave a disclaimer, but you know what? It is what it is. If you ask for something long enough, as our black women have, if you ask for something long enough, eventually it will show up. And eventually, there will be a Pharaoh that does not know Joseph. In other words, a generation that doesn't agree to the old paradigm, to the old contract. And black women, that generation is here. Like it or not, it is here. You're getting everything that you asked for, but it doesn't look like the desired results. Just a thought, just a morning thought. When you ask the universe for something, be careful of what it is that you ask for, because like anything else, there's always an upside and there's always a downside. There's an upside for being in the world of men. Okay, you learn to travel anywhere in the world in self-sufficiency. You learn, it's a process. It doesn't just happen. Downside is you take great risk anytime you step out your door because you are a man. And you have to learn how to handle that. Because at any time there could be a knife blade, a bullet, a fist with your name on it. And that day could be the day. And that happens as soon as you take breath out of your mother's womb. But unlike women, we're built for this. And I have to ask women, are you? And is this what you want? Heavy is the head that wears the crown. But that's all I got for my morning thought. Agree or disagree. I know the women are going to come in and thumb this down. So hopefully I don't get a community strike. I think I did just get rid of one strike. So I guess I'm due for another. But anyway, that's all I got. Speegy out now. See you guys on the next one.